Thank you, everybody. We could make a start then. So welcome everybody to today's meeting of City Hall Council's Area Planning Committee. My name's Councillor Holly and I'm chairing the committee today. Obviously, we've got members of the committee on both sides. On my right, we've got Gareth Arnold, who's the council's development control manager. So we've got Sandra, who's a senior solicitor. We've got a few apologies today. So Councillor Craghill, Councillor Crawshaw, we've got Councillor Lucas. No, we haven't. She sent her apologies as well. Okay. So we just need then to elect a vice chair for the meeting, obviously in the absence of Councillor Crawshaw. So if you've got any nominations? Councillor Webb, I think you've done it before. Seem happy with that? Thank you very much. Any declarations of interest? Councillor Wardley.
Thank you very much, Chair. I would like to, for transparency, to say that I've got a personal non-prejudicial interest. I know the applicant, he's just walked in and I just recognised him. I literally worked in a shop and he's one of the customers, so I don't feel conflicted at all. I am able to vote.
Okay, thank you. Any others? Can't see any. So onto the minutes. We've got two sets this month. Start with the minutes from the 16th of February. Any concerns? No, happy for me to sign those, I will do. 10th of March. Can't see any complaints there either, so happy to sign those as well. Item 3 then, so there's no general speakers under the general public participation remit of the committee, so I think we can move straight on then to the plans list. And we've got item 4A, which is 20 Kerver Lane. It's Gareth, if you could.
Thank you, Chair. This is a planning application for the erection of a two-storey rear extension to this property. It's a detached property following the demolition of the existing conservatory. I'd just like to show members an error that's been drawn to our attention in the as existing plan. So let's just zoom in. So this illustration shows a brick side to the conservatory on the application house. Members who were at the site visit yesterday will have seen that that's actually glazed along the side. But as that's the as existing drawing, we don't feel it materially impacts on the officer's report as written. So just to go through the proposal, it's quite a busy drawing this, but I'm sure you'll have to pick out what's going on. So front elevation is unchanged. Side elevation, so here's the new, let's go down to the as existing. So there's the conservatory there. As proposed, so the side extension, it's like set down from the ridge, and then the eaves are set down from the eaves of the host dwelling. The ground floor projects the same distance as the existing conservatory, which is about 4 meters. First floor is set back slightly, so that's a 3.1 meter projection. And then on the rear elevation, you see 2-bedroom windows, bifolding doors at ground floor level. We got to the site plan. So here's the proposed extension. There's a gap to the boundary. It's a tapered boundary, as you can see. There's a gap to the boundary of between 1.2 meters and that's about 880 millimeters there. And then that distance is 3.7 to the flank wall of number 22, which is the neighbour to the northwest. Some photographs. Oops. There we go. So this is from the neighbour's garden, number 22. Neighbour's conservatory, and here's the location of the proposed extension, which will, at first floor level, project the same distance as that extension that was built under PD rights a few years ago. I've taken a Google Earth image there, which shows the relationship between the two properties, gives some indication of the outlook from the rear of both. The members wish to see anything else on that presentation?
Councillor Melly?
Thanks, Chair. One of the objections has been summarised in the report as being potential loss of privacy due to a proposed window on the ground floor, which faces the neighbour property on 22. But is that window where there's already glazing as part of the conservatory, or is there a window in a different location?
Yeah. So that's, zoom in. So this high level window here, but yeah, as you say, that's in the same plane, same location as the glazed conservatory, which is why the case officer made the call that it would be unreasonable to attempt to control that particular window.
There's no further questions then, just on the presentation. If we can move on to our public speakers. We've got 4 speakers this afternoon, and the first is Edward Gallagher, who's speaking in objection. If you'd like to come forward, the seat in the middle there. So on the unit in front of you, you should have a little mic button. I don't know if you can, if you press that and it should go green. Okay. Okay, you've got 3 minutes to address the committee, and if you'd like to make a start in your own time, and I'll give you a warning about 30 seconds to go.
So actually, when did you start the floor?
When you start speaking.
When I start speaking, fine. That's it. On pages 3 and 4 of the committee report in front of you, 5.4 policy D11 states on page 4 that the proposals should protect the amenity of neighbouring occupiers. On page 4, 5.6 policy H7 states that residential extensions will be permitted where 3, there is no adverse effect on neighbourhood amenity. In the committee report on pages 5.11, it states the proposal will have an impact on sunlight in reaching the rear garden, a clear loss of amenity. Page 5.12 states the new windows will increase the opportunity for overlooking it, i.e. number 22, again, a clear loss of amenity. Page 6, 5.13, the report states that the extension will be clearly visible when looking sideways from the conservatory of 22 towards number 20, another loss of amenity. On page 6, 5.14 states the proposal will have some impact on the morning sunlight, particularly at times of the year when the sun is low in the sky. Again, a clear loss of amenity. May I remind the councillors that your policy H7 of the 2005 Development Control Local Plan states that residential extensions will be permitted if there is no adverse effect on neighbour amenity. In addition, on page 5 and 5.13, the committee report states that when assessing the acceptability of a two-storey extension, a line is drawn towards the application site at a 45-degree angle from the nearest rear-facing opening, serving a neighbour's ground floor habitable room. The original and the revised plans still have my first floor bathroom used in contravention of your rules. The committee report's author has changed this to the sliding doors between my living room and my habitable conservatory. But this is not what the supplementary planning document says, as it refers to the 45-degree line being drawn from the centre point at the nearest ground floor habitable room window towards the proposed extension.
30 seconds.
Drawing the 45-degree line correctly from the nearest conservatory window means that the two-storey extension would project beyond the line, so the extension should be unacceptable. Overall, as councillors, passing this proposed extension would put you in breach of the policies D1, D11 and H7. You should and could and should reject this application.
Thank you. Just bear with us a second. I'll ask if the committee have got any questions. I can't see any, so I'll thank you for your time this evening and welcome to.
You want this off?
You can leave it on because we've got a couple more speakers to come yet. Next then, if we could have Councillor Brooks, who's speaking, I believe, on behalf of the Parish Council, which is Dunnington.
Thank you, Chair. Dunnington Parish Council objects to this application. The proposed extension would adversely affect the enjoyment of the property of the neighbours at number 22. The wall of the extension next to the boundary between the properties would be overbearing and totally dominate part of their garden. It would also appear overbearing from their conservatory, which is their main living area, and cause a certain loss of light. The proposal, therefore, would have a non-trivial adverse effect on neighbour amenity, which is against CYC's policy H7 and Dunnington's VDS page 17, item 20. If anybody had actually looked on the planning website, you would have seen that the Parish Council's initial argument was that it did not object. It was only when the chair of the planning group went round and into the garden and into the conservatory of the neighbour, but they realised just how much they would be affected by it. I don't know how many of you took part in the Zoom virtual meeting yesterday, but even that wouldn't really have given you a full idea. And photos, well, we all know, being on holiday, you take a photo, but things just seem so much further away than they actually are. When I did planning visits and then on the planning committee, I noticed often that people who've been on site visits and actually saw things in situ voted differently from those who only looked at photos. And this is not going to be pleasant for a retired couple who've lived there for 26 years since the house was built to have their main living area dominated by a tall wall. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll just ask if there's any questions. I saw Councillor Orrell.
Afternoon, Jenny. One of the objections from the parish says that there are some inaccurate details shown on the plans which are misleading. Can you tell us more about that?
I think that was something that the chair of planning was told by the neighbour. I believe it was partly to do with the tapering of the gap between them and the positioning of the wall.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry that
No, that's fine.
I'm a bit of a late comer to this. I wasn't initially going to be speaking. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Fisher.
Thank you. If I could just ask Mrs. Brooks, if does Dunnington have a neighbourhood plan? Has it yet had a neighbourhood plan adopted, or
We're in the process.
You're in the process, so it's not adopted as of yet?
But obviously the BDS is. Gone off. Yeah, so yes, we've got the advisory stuff in the BDS, but not the actual neighbourhood planning. No.
Thank you. Just want to clarify that.
Thank you. Any further questions? I can't see any, so I'll thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you.
Next, we've got Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sure some of you are sat here today wondering why a routine house extension application is before committee. Well, I thought the same when first approached by the neighbour at number 22. I looked on the planning file and I thought it's a relatively benign proposal. As soon as I viewed the situation from number 22, it became clear to me I was wrong and this was a totally unacceptable proposal. I was going to refer members to the misleading elements on the planning file, but Gareth covered that earlier. So I'll go on to say that I'm sure some of you are aware of when this Hogs estate was built at Kerver Lane 25 plus years ago, and it had gone through the usual extensive design and planning process. And one of the main features of the properties was their individuality and the thought that had gone into the layout of properties to ensure good amenity to gardens and basically a neighbourly approach to layout. Many properties took up the option of conservatories with the new houses or had later additions as garden rooms, which suited the original design ethos as they were not intrusive or impacting on neighbours. Indeed, the relationship between conservatories at number 20 and 22 is a very good example of that. The proposed two-storey extension will seriously compromise the design ethos and relationship between those two properties, with little or no room for landscaping to mitigate. Whilst an unneighbourly application is of course not a reason for refusal, there are sufficient defendable reasons to refuse this. Paragraph 5.2 quotes the MPPF, specifically reference to developments being sympathetic to local character and surrounding built environment. This application certainly isn't sympathetic to the neighbouring property, creating in effect a stark warehouse wall outlook. Similarly, City Council policies can be interpreted in the same way. This proposal, by virtue of its mass and scale, cannot do anything else but impact on neighbouring amenity. The Dunnington VDS and progressing neighbourhood plan policies similarly try to protect neighbours' amenity. Taken with an earlier rear extension, the host property will, if this is approved, have changed its rear size and mass beyond all comprehension to its original well thought out design.
It's 30 seconds.
Surely it's time to say enough is enough. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the committee? Can't see any, so thank you for your time this evening, Councillor Waters. Our last speaker then is Katie Machin, who's the applicant. Thank you. If you'd like to make a start in your own time.
Chair, members, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for allowing me the time to talk in support of our application for a two-storey rear extension to our home. We have been Dunnington residents for nearly 7 years, and my husband and I are seeking permission for this extension so that we would not have to move to a larger dwelling in a different area of York, with all the associated disruption and stress to our children's and indeed our own lives. We are very happy in this location and hope to stay here for many years ahead. Dunnington is very convenient for our work. Our children go to the local schools and they have their friends here. We have all become involved in local facilities and clubs in the village, which we will continue to support, as well as the local community and social facilities. Whilst our home is described as 4-bedroomed, because of the arrangement of having rooms in the roof, they are quite modest, and we are at the stage of our family life where we simply need more space. We have some family who live away and we regularly have them to stay. Coupled with our children growing up and the prospect of them living at home for longer, having one further normal-sized bedroom would offer them the privacy they need in their teenage years and beyond. We planned the extension so that it would have the least impact on our neighbours and felt that the proposals complied with all the planning guidelines and recommendations and fitted in very well on the street scene, being virtually totally concealed behind our existing roof. The materials and construction details to be used for the extension all match those of the existing house. Again, all as recommended in current planning guidance documents. During the planning process, we were not surprised of the objection received by our neighbour, as we had discussed our plans with them so as try to ease any concerns that they had. We were, however, surprised by the further objections raised. Following site visits and discussions with the planning officer, we agreed to reduce the projection of the proposed first floor rear bedroom by nearly a metre, despite this reducing the floor area of the bedroom by almost 23%, in the belief that this would address the concerns raised, while still giving us ample extra bedroom space. We also provided some path diagrams to illustrate that the degree of overshading caused by the extension is very small, as noted in the planning officer's report. On checking the planning history of other properties on Kerver Lane, we note that there are some other dwellings where two-storey extensions have been permitted, so these proposals are by no means setting an inappropriate precedent for others to follow. Unfortunately, the additional information and revised scheme drawings are still not considered to be acceptable, and the objections remain, hence the application being discussed at this meeting. We hope that the committee members can see that our proposed extension does comply with planning guidelines, sits comfortably on our plot, will enable us to continue to live happily in our home, and that the committee are able to support the planning officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Just ask if the committee have got any questions. I can't see any, so I'll thank you for your time this evening.
Do you want me to turn this off?
Yes, please. Thank you. We move on then to any substantive questions we have for Gareth. Councillor Orrell.
Yes, thank you, Chair. The neighbour objection in 4.2 says that if permission is given, there should be a condition that no other windows are inserted in the first floor side elevation. Now, the report says that's not necessary. Would it be permissible to put that condition in?
It wouldn't comply with national policy in respect of conditions, because they would, it was considered to be unnecessary, because permitted development rights, if they put a window inside elevation, would require it to be obscure glazed and require it to be fixed up to 1.7 metres above first floor level. So I guess if members consider that that is not sufficient mitigation to a side-facing window, then that may be justification to impose such a condition. But national regulation, if something is put in under permitted development rights, suggests that that is sufficient to make a satisfactory arrangement between neighbours.
Okay. Any further questions, Councillor Webb?
Thank you, Gareth. You said earlier on that the other side of the original building had already been developed through permitted development rights. Is that correct? So what specifically is different about this side that has meant that we have come here, or it's gone through plan rather than a permitted development situation?
I think it must be the distance to the boundary with number 16. There. I think that must be, I didn't look into it deeply. I didn't look into it at all, actually. But one of the limitations of the two-storey rear extension permitted development right is a distance to the boundary. So looking at it, I think that's probably it.
So it's the nature of number 20 being on an angle, sort of angle towards the back angle towards 22 that
Yeah, and being slightly closer to the boundary.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Fisher.
Yeah, as far as the 45-degree rule is concerned, that applies to habitable rooms. Would a bathroom and a conservatory be considered as habitable rooms under that guidance?
A bathroom wouldn't, but I think the line as drawn by the architect, because that's our guidance says it should be taken from a habitable room window. So that really should have been taken probably from the French windows of the ground floor room. Having said that, it's it probably doesn't change that 45-degree rule, that 45-degree line anyway. In terms of a conservatory, it's not, is it habitable? We would certainly give it some weight in the impact of a conservatory. We give it some weight in the decision-making process and its impact. I think the officer here has drawn the 45 as part of the assessment. Has drawn a 45-degree angle from the rear point here, and obviously because that's further into the garden, that will pass it. What the neighbour is suggesting is that the 45-degree line should be drawn out from the side and sort of, I guess, towards the extension. In what is passed around in 13.6, it doesn't say that it should be a rear-facing window, although what it does do is refer to diagram 9. There's an illustration which does show a rear-facing window being used for that 45-degree line. I personally, professionally, I don't think we would normally draw a 45-degree angle from a side-facing window, unless there was, it was a house that was designed with habitable windows to the side, and that was a feature of the property itself. But it doesn't explicitly say you shouldn't.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. Any further questions? Can't see any, so if we're happy then to move into debate, and if anybody would like to make a start, I'd be grateful. Councillor Webb.
Thank you, Chair. I think this is a tricky one, because I can see that it is a distinct change from what is there currently, as is the nature of all developments. I think it is going to be a shift if the neighbours are living in the conservatory quite considerably. But I think based on everything we've seen and everything we've heard today, I don't think we have the planning grounds to reject this. So in my mind, I like to propose that we approve the officer's recommendation. I'd particularly like to point to paragraph 5.14, where I think it admits that it will have some effect on in terms of loss of light. But the last sentence of that paragraph says, however, it is not considered taking account the depth and the height of the extension and separation to 22, that the overall loss of light to the rear of the home would be such to justify refusal. And I think that's the main argument that we've heard tonight. As I mentioned earlier in a question, I think that, the other side of this was permitted development. And I think this is on the verge of permitted development. I admit, though, it is slightly closer to the neighbours, and that's probably why we're here discussing it tonight. So on the grounds I've not heard anything that really does contradict what we've got here in front of us in the papers, then I'm moved to approve the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody willing to second that? It's Councillor Fisher.
Thank you, Chair. I am happy to second it. I think the sunlight assessment that's shown in the documents shows that this conservatory doesn't actually get a huge amount of sunlight, and this won't make a lot of difference, largely because it faces more or less northeast, and consequently it's in shade a lot of the day anyway. The separation between the neighbouring dwelling and the actual extension is 5 metres, which I think is fairly considerable. I agree there is some loss of amenity, but I don't think it's sufficient in any way to justify a refusal, because I think it would undoubtedly fall on appeal. I don't think there is sufficient planning grounds.
Thank you. Any further debate? I can't see any. So Gareth, if you're able to just give us a quick summary of where we are, and then we'll move to the vote.
Thank you, Chair. So it's been moved that permission be granted subject to the conditions in the report.
I did bring it up, but I thought Gareth's explanation covered it.
Okay. So I could then see all those in favour of the proposal. Okay, so I think that is unanimous. So the application is approved. So thank you everybody for your time this evening. There is no urgent business, so I'll close the meeting there. Thank you.